You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and give me a follow on X at JackBushman2, but make sure to check out my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. On today's episode, I'll discuss the Chicago Blackhawks selections at the 2025 NHL Draft, plus GM Kyle Davidson staying quiet in the offseason, expectations for this upcoming season, and everything in between with none other than Anthony Donati, a.k.a. the Prospect Don. Make sure to go and check him out on X if you don't already, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Does a ton of great work in Blackhawks content space. Anthony, I know we got a lot of Blackhawks stuff to get to here on today's show since we last talked, but first just wanted to say thank you so much for making the time to come and join me here on the show. I know we kind of had to move some things around because I got a fantasy football draft here this evening, so I greatly appreciate you working with me and taking the time up on the pod, my man.
Yeah, thanks for that great introduction. I mean, this is fantasy football season plus hockey season. It's around the corner. So I totally understand. I have plenty of fantasy football drafts that I need to be studying for. But, you know, speaking of the Blackhawks, like this is the time where the prospects get to kind of show their stuff. You see the Sam Renzel clips down in that league. I keep forgetting what league it is, but
Beauty League.
Yeah, the Beauty League. Yeah, and he scored 10 points last night or last game. Like that was awesome. 5 goals. So yeah, it's always fun to see like interesting clips. Like the Anton Fondell clip I wanted to talk to you about as soon as I saw that because that was a ridiculous angle. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It's my first time on Locked On, so that's pretty cool. I've been watching this for a while, so thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And I have a feeling this probably will not be your last time here on the show. I have a good feeling we'll be talking Blackhawks hockey here quite a lot throughout the 25-26 season. But the last time we chatted, Anthony, when I joined you on your show, it was just prior to the 2025 NHL draft. You were about to head out there. I threw in your DMs, bring home Michael Misa. Unfortunately, we know that wasn't the case. We'll talk about Anton Fondell, Vaslav, Nestrasil, and Mason West here in just a second. But first things first, tell me about what the experience was like at your first NHL draft, my friend. Take me through some of the like pinch me type of moments and some of the cool things you got to do, and just give me kind of a quick synopsis of how special that couple of days was for you.
Well, it was magical. Like I couldn't dream it better. I guess like when I first got to the hotel, it was after like a 4-hour flight and then the Uber and everything and the travel. And I'm always like tired. I just wanted to take a nap because I got there a little early. And I saw a prospect who was drafted in the top 15 this year. His parents wanted a picture with me and I was waiting in line to check in and they were like, prospect on. And there was a bunch of people like Sirius XM people sitting down in the lobby. And I was like, and they wanted a picture with me. And then they actually posted the picture on Instagram as a congratulatory tweet to their son being drafted in the NHL. And I just was like, I even said in the moment, like, I am not picture worthy. Like, this is crazy. But the parents have been watching my stuff throughout the entire draft process to see where I was ranking people. And it was the same person that had bought like a round of drinks for my table with like Chris Peters, Cam Robinson, and Scott Wheeler and those guys at the combine. So really great family. And then there was just like me meeting a bunch of people that I had never met. I got to hang out with Cam Robinson and Marco D'Amico like 2 times after both like draft days, and we just like went out, had a couple drinks and stuff, and there was like Matthew Schaefer and James Hagen's table was sitting next to us. Mason West sat down right next to us and then got up when he noticed that we were all there because it was before the draft day and he probably just wanted some privacy. There was just like really cool things going on during the draft day because there's all these little events around the stadium, like hockey events, like scrimmages, just like kids shooting pucks. Very, very cool. I got to see the Stanley Cup in person for the first time. You know, it was an experience I'll never forget. A lot of people said the decentralized draft was bad, but for like media, I think it was like the best case scenario because when they were on Caleb Desnoyers, I was up interviewing Anton Fondell, Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa all back to back to back. And I still got to see like Martone get drafted. I got to see Brady Martin get drafted. So for that aspect, it was great. I don't know how it felt for you guys watching the decentralized draft. There wasn't like the best ratings on that, but yeah, getting Frondell I think was kind of a surprise after the whole day. The day before was Michael Misa's going to the Blackhawks. Like he's gonna fall. There was some serious noise. Michael Misa didn't even think he was going to get drafted by the Sharks. One of the people in his camp were like, yeah, he does not know where he's going. Like there was no clear answer. So it was kind of interesting to talk to everybody and hear that it was going to be Misa to the Blackhawks and then it wasn't.
Yeah, I wish it was. But we'll get to Anton Fondell here in just a second. But wanted to say congratulations on that awesome experience, man. Sounds like you were a kid on Christmas out there for the draft, and awesome that you got all of those cool moments. But as you alluded to, Anton Fondell, there were so many rumors surrounding his name in those couple of days leading up to round one going down, sounding like he was starting to become the favorite for the San Jose Sharks at number 2. There were some conflicting reports, but he does wind up being the selection for San Jose. That leaves Anton Fondell falling to the Blackhawks at number 3. And there were also reports a couple of days prior, Anthony, that Fondell wasn't going to make it past number 3. If he wasn't the pick for the San Jose Sharks, he was going to be the pick for the Chicago Blackhawks. What do you make of that decision now for the Blackhawks, as we're a couple of months removed from them selecting Fondell at number 3? Do you believe, I know obviously there's a long way to go for all of these players to figure out what they're truly going to be at the NHL level, but where we stand right now, do you believe the Blackhawks made the correct pick with Anton Fondell at number 3?
I think it was the correct pick in the situation, but I also think that it goes to like Kyle Davidson's evaluation of this team this year. I think that it kind of opens the door to get Ivar Stenberg if they are top 3 again and they miss out on McKenna, because Ivar Stenberg and Frondell have played together for a very long time, and I just feel like it would be the best case scenario for the Blackhawks to get another skilled over 6 foot forward that can score and be on Bedard's line. Whereas there's a lot of really good prospects in this next draft, but the thing about it is like you kind of want players with familiarity, and if they did swing and miss on trying to get Misa, if that was the indication of what it was going to be, then they fell in love with Frondell's like two-way game, that he's versatile, he can play forward or center, and I do think that he's going to be paired up with Connor Bedard in the long run, and I do think that there's a clear path for Frank Nazar as the 2C of this team, so that kind of opens the door for right winger or just like a free agency signing or trade acquisition for Bedard's line. But the perfect fit for Bedard's line would be Gavin McKenna or Ivar Stenberg. So I do think, like at this time, and obviously things can change, but those players have such a large resume that it would be kind of interesting if they did fall off the face of the earth a little bit. I just feel like it was either going to be Frondell or Porter Martone, in my opinion, because they needed to surround Bedard with help, and both of them were elite shooters. The one thing is Frondell was a little bit better skater, but maybe worse in the transition game, and you saw Porter Martone kind of elevate his game during Hockey Canada's international play when he was playing with like Macklin Celebrini and Sidney Crosby and those guys, and you could tell that he could skate at that high level. So it was kind of interesting. You could see Stephen Ellis's 75 affiliated prospects list came out, and Porter Martone was 8. Or I think he was either 6 or 8, but Frondell was like 13 or 14. So that kind of shows me that like Frondell might not be the media favorite and the scouts favorite, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be like nice base level floor for a team that needs those core players. So it's a safer pick, as well as he can have that upside with his shot, and it's a very heavy shot. And I think that if you get him like an office like Ovi does, it's not a corner office like he has, but if you get him like a nice office where Bedard is just feeding him pucks, then he's going to be able to score 30, 35, 40 goals in a season. So I don't think you can actually like, I think that it was a good pick.
Yeah, and I think too, with the way that Fondell goes about his business, it's been clear since Kyle Davidson has taken over. He likes hockey players, guys who are well-rounded, can play a full game. I mean, if you just go through the forwards in the prospect pool, right, like Frank Nazar, Sasha Boisvert, guys who can play in all three zones. Anton Fondell is that same type of player, so he checks that box that KD's been very familiar with as general manager. And as you mentioned, like the size plus shot as well. Like that was something very missing from the Blackhawks forward group, was a bigger forward to go really play up inside the top six and potentially be a line mate along with Connor Bedard. So that's why I do, especially as the last couple of months have gone by, I was fine with Fondell at number 3 at the time, but he's definitely grown on me these last few months in terms of just overall fit for what the Blackhawks really need in this prospect pool. And the size didn't stop there with Anton Fondell at number 3. Basically, that was the name of Kyle Davidson's 2025 draft class, was if you aren't 6'2", go and kick rocks. And we continue to see that in the first round with a guy you've had the pleasure of interviewing several different times, I know, on your show, Vaslav Nestrasil. There were obviously rumors about the Blackhawks being very high on Nestrasil leading up to the draft as well. And we even spoke about him on the last time that we recorded, Anthony, before you heading out to the NHL draft. We talked about potentially him being the 25th overall pick for the Blackhawks. That winds up happening. And I know he was someone you were really keying in on. So tell me what you love so much in particular about Vaslav Nestrasil at number 25.
Yeah, I kind of like locked on, like no pun intended, literally. Like I locked on to Vaslav Nestrasil, I think back in March, to be a Blackhawk, because he just kind of fit the profile of what the Blackhawks needed. I think Kyle Davidson called the Mason West pick a grand slam, like a swing for like a grand slam swing. I think Nestrasil is also that, where you get a guy in the USHL who played 8 games and scored 0 points, and then the next year he was leading a team to a USHL championship where they haven't won in years. And I feel like it was just important for the Blackhawks to continue to draft size, whereas it wasn't really a Blackhawks thing. Every team was prioritizing size. This might have been the largest draft ever based on size. I don't even know how many under 6-foot defensemen got taken, because Luka Radujevich, actually his Muskegon Lumberjack teammate, didn't even get drafted, and he was very, very high in some of the rankings earlier in the season, like a second, third round pick. Some even had him as like a fringe top 40 pick. So it was kind of interesting to see he didn't. Obviously, Ivan Ryabkin was also a player that was in the top 5, and Vaslav Nestrasil, every single time you watched, it was Vaslav Nestrasil. It wasn't Ivan Ryabkin. Ivan Ryabkin ended up going 62 to the Hurricanes, which means he's going to be a superstar one day, because that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
But I will say, a guy that Vaslav just raved about every single time I had him on my podcast or show, it was Tynan Lawrence, who's going to be a top 5, top 6 draft pick in 2026 as like projected right now. And I don't see that slowing down. He's going to the USHL. It's not like he's taking a big jump where Adam Valentini is, and going to the from the USHL to the NCAA, which is very scary when you're 5'9" or 5'10". But not to hate on Adam Valentini, I just wanted to throw him out there. I did have him on my show as well, and I'm a big fan of him. I did want to talk about like Vaslav more. He's a guy that's very, very tall. Like I don't know if you guys have watched this yet, but Bar Down had a game where they were up 20-1 or 20-0. They started 20 goal lead against the Bar Down crew on Muskegon. And the thing is, like, Jesse Pollock called Vaslav Nestrasil a tree, and he was just chirping him about being a tree because he's that big. He's true 6'6". And the thing is, like, he has just so much upside. I see a floor too. His brother was drafted in the 3rd round to the Red Wings way back when, and he comes from a hockey family. His mom also is has a pretty good podcast in Czech, so I always think that's kind of cool. But I feel like this guy was a no-brainer to take that kind of risk and the reward that you can get with a guy like that, because the Blackhawks prospect pool was a little bit smaller than usual. And I wanted to go back to Anton Fondell, because I did get to talk to Ivar Stenberg last week, and Ivar Stenberg told me that Anton Fondell is a powerhouse and he will do anything the coaches will ask you. And every single Swedish prospect I asked, except one, I asked about like 15, they said Anton Fondell was the hardest player they've ever played against. So he doesn't really come up on the stat sheet as much as you would want. Like Vigor Bjork has 74 points in 42 J20 games. Anton had 7 points in 10 games. So it's not about like his stats. He just does everything you want in a player. So I think Vaslav does the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, for Fondell as well, getting great experience in the SHL this year after winning the Hockey Allsvenskan League last season. We've seen some preseason action going down with Fondell scoring a ridiculous bank shot goal a couple of days ago. I've been very thrilled to see him in that second line center role. I know it's only preseason and obviously things can change until the start of the regular season, but I think that's a really good spot for Anton Fondell to be in. Not the top line guy, which funny enough is actually, or at least in the preseason, has been occupied by Blackhawks legend Marcus Kruger, serving as the team's top line center. But Fondell in that 2C spot, I think, is a really good spot for a fresh 18-year-old to, not be put in the Lions position to have to go and be a dominating offensive force, but can kind of be a good two-way type of player. And I think getting the experience in the SHL before likely coming over to North America and joining on with the Blackhawks, that definitely has me even more excited about where his game is going to go over the next year. And, with the floor that's already as high as his is, it's definitely going to be exciting to see what he's kind of able to put together these next couple of years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, Marcus Kruger raved to the Blackhawks about Fondell. And it was always funny because they have the same agent. And when I was at the draft, I got to meet Anton's agent, and we were talking about like Marcus Kruger coming on the show and just like how much he loves Anton. And Anton and Marcus Kruger actually roomed together in one of the tournaments. So all Anton did was ask Marcus Kruger about the Blackhawks and talk to him about the championship runs. He said Marcus Kruger got mad at him because he couldn't even get any sleep because he was just asking him. So I always thought that was funny, and that was before he got drafted. I asked him about it at the draft podium though, and I did ask him if he watched Connor Bedard, and he used to watch all of his highlights, was a really big fan. And I think it might have been Ben Pope, who does fantastic work, but I'm not really sure who asked him this question, but it was who have you he asked what position would you want to be? And I actually don't know if it was Ben Pope, but he said what position you would want to be. And he said, Fondell said, whatever Bedard's not. So I feel like that's awesome when you hear a guy that's just so versatile that he doesn't care about being the 2C, because I feel like Anton Fondell and Frank Nazar can be interchangeable on Bedard's line. I see Anton Fondell kind of being the Marian Hossa type of role that you kind of need in a dynasty. If you're trying to mirror what happened with the 2010 dynasties, I think Anton Fondell kind of would be that Marian Hossa-esque role. So if Frank Nazar could be like a Patrick Sharp, I would love that for him. So you kind of have those two positions there. And I think Connor Bedard would kind of be like a Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews-esque player, where you have Patrick Kane as center, and you just need to get him that teammate, that Batman to his Robin to his Batman. And I could see either one of Frank Nazar and Fondell working to that advantage, because they both help Bedard elevate his game. So I really do like that. And also Fondell is really good defensively. So I feel like that's something that people don't talk about a lot.
Yeah, and that second line center spot I just talked about this on my show literally yesterday. It is going to be so fascinating to see who winds up taking that second line center spot between, Nazar and Fondell are the two front runners right now, but I wouldn't, rule out someone like Sasha Boisvert or maybe Oliver Moore shocks us with his offense, these next couple of years and boosts his way up to a 2C. That's going to be a fascinating conversation for a couple of different years. But third first round selection that the Blackhawks made in 2025 after taking Vaslav Nestrasil. He's going to be going to UMass in the fall, where I think is a really good spot for him as a little bit of a project-y type of player to continue taking strides in the right direction. Blackhawks kind of took a similar pick at number 29, trading back into the first round in Mason West, as you mentioned earlier in the show, a grand slam type of swing by GMKD here, and one I really liked. Blackhawks, in my opinion, definitely were in a position to go in something like this, considering just how many numbers they have in their prospect pool. It's about quality, not quantity at this point any longer. And Mason West if he winds up panning out because of his size, skating ability, athletics, like this guy is just an athletic freak, right? With football and hockey, the way he's highly regarded in both of those sports. If he winds up panning out, the sky is truly the limit. So did you like the Mason West grand slam type of swing as much as I did, Anthony?
Yeah. So actually, funny story on Mason West. One, he didn't know it was his draft year because he was a junior in high school. So the fact that he didn't know, it's like he doesn't have his full focus at that point into hockey, which is great because you could see a guy that's 6'6" and a quarter, has that much talent and has a lot of playmaking and vision. The guy's a quarterback, but he has eyes in the back of his head. When you watch that guy play and he's around the boards and the subtle movement he makes, it's still football player, but he's begging you to hit him because when he absorbs the contact, he's going to be able to continue to protect the puck as well as make a play. And I really like guys like him, as well as if you want to see more of his football career in high school, because he's still a senior in high school trying to go for that high school championship because they already won one for hockey. He's playing Friday, I believe, I think is his first game. So he plays for Fargo Force in the USHL for hockey, but he plays for Eden High or
Edina.
Eden West High, Edina. Yeah. So you can actually go watch him, drive 4 hours and watch him play some football. So I feel like that's pretty cool. Very talented guy. If you see his the John Gruden clip where he was interviewing him, that kind of scared me though. When you get John Gruden to interview you, you're getting scholarships. I don't want to scare anybody, but Mason West is a talented football player. He is great. He reminds me of a smaller or a less talented Trevor Lawrence, but only less talented because Trevor Lawrence was a 5-star best quarterback in the nation and Mason West is a 3-star. But I just feel like there's going to be some people that are coming, and he's going to Michigan State in 2027. And I feel like that's a fantastic fit because Michigan State does really, really well with recruiting, and they still could have Porter Martone and Van Sagi there as well when he gets there. So I do like that fit, but he dispelled all rumors that he's going to be playing football. But I just feel like this guy is multi-sport talented. If there was a way that he could play both in the NHL season and football season where they just he joins the team one day or another, I could see it happening, but it's not going to because the seasons overlap. But the guy is that talented. I do see him as an NHL player with his floor, and his upside is extremely huge.
Yeah, the Friday Night Lights for Mason West is going to begin here soon. I'm definitely excited to see some football highlights going down, and might have to even make a trip out there to go see what he's doing with the pigskin in his hand as well. But as you mentioned, going to Michigan State after he'll wrap up his senior season of football, he'll be joining on with the Fargo Force. I agree with you. I think Michigan State is a really good spot, another widely regarded top program in college hockey these last few years that's done a good job developing some prospects. And I think in a similar, lane to Vaslav Nestrasil, there's some ironing out of the kinks that still need to be done with Mason West, but just because of the size, athleticism, and both of those guys skate well for their size also, it gives them a ton of upside. And Blackhawks, as we alluded to, certainly we're in a position to go upside in the first round of the 2025 NHL draft. But as a whole, Anthony, I wanted to ask you your final thoughts on the 2025 NHL draft. What kind of, if anything, surprised you the most in terms of a certain guy falling, a certain guy maybe going way earlier than you expected, whether it relates to the Blackhawks or not? Was there anything that really stunned you on draft night?
There was multiple things. I can list an hour of things. One was Lyndon Lakovic going 27. I really do like everything about Lyndon. 6'4", but he's a soft skill forward, so he doesn't really give you that physicality, and I think it hurt him. But Moose Jaw won the the WHL championship, and then they just were in a rebuild this year, so it kind of hurt him. I think that if he was coming off a Moose Jaw championship and they saw how competitive he was, it would have been a lot better. I think his draft stock would have been a lot higher. I do think that Malcolm Spence shouldn't have fallen where he fell. I think that regardless, he should have been drafted at 42 to the Islanders. Worst case, you needed to pair up. Matthew Schaefer was his best friend. Whenever there's a prospect in the same tier as a player and a pick that you're drafting, I think, and they're friends with your new franchise player, you have to take him. I was screaming when the Blackhawks didn't take Andrew Crystal. He is now the 37th best prospect in Stephen Ellis's the affiliated prospects, and it's because of how skilled he was. He was best friends with Connor Bedard for a reason. You're best friends because you're talented with each other and you see the game similarly. I do think that kind of it goes overlooked when we talk about like anything. What you want to be around people that you're like as skilled as in anything. And I feel like when you don't take a guy like that, when you just get your franchise player, it does hurt them a little bit. Matthew Schaefer and Malcolm Spence were best friends. They had incredible chemistry together at Erie Otters this year. And the only thing that knocked on Malcolm Spence was that he was going to Michigan next year and his stats could go down. Malcolm Spence is going to be an NHL player. I think he's going to be middle six regardless. So I feel like that should have never happened. I think Shane Van Soggy went a little late. I was surprised that Ben Kindle went 11 and Jack Nesbitt went 12. I thought that was a little interesting, but I did get to talk to Ben Kindle. We had to sit down during the combine, and I absolutely love everything about the kid. And also Kyle Dubas had said hi to me right before my he didn't know who I was, but he said hi to me right before my Kindle interview, and I didn't even think anything of it. Like Kindle was like, oh, I didn't know the Penguins were even interested in him. So I always thought that was interesting. I think that a guy that the Blackhawks got, Nathan Bem, who I actually just posted my interview of today with him, is one of the best players that they could have gotten. Very highly skilled. Somebody in my group chat after I posted said that he's like a more skilled, better Gavin Hayes. And I actually really like that comp because I feel like he does a lot with the Blackhawks need in their prospect system. And he was always one of the top kids. Very confident. He said that players he modeled his game after were Sidney Crosby, Johnny Gaudreau, actually, and also there was one more. I know that he wore 29 because of Nathan McKinnon as well. So, Jack Eichel was the other guy. Very skilled player. I think that he's going to absolutely be an NHL player. I think that it's going to be very similar to Nick Lardis's rise. Kyle Davidson does really well with that third round pick that he always gets because he always takes
money. Round's been money.
It's not like Ryan Poles, guys. This guy's actually getting really good talent in the third round. And I think it's because he's picking players that are supposed to be in the 40s. I really like that value. I think that any scouting or general, whoever is making the decision, if you have multiple picks, take the best player available because they normally are the guys that are the ones that are NHL players, or they have the most value, and you can excrete the value. So I feel that guys like Nathan Bem shouldn't have been left on the board. I think Ivan Ryabkin going 62 is a little surprising. Like I had said, Luka Radijevich going undrafted. I thought it was kind of a surprise that the Bruins took James Haggins. I didn't really see that coming, as well as I was surprised that Nashville took Brady Martin because I did not see that coming either. I thought Nashville needed to go highest upside available, and I don't think they did. I do think that they got a very safe player that's going to be really good in the playoffs. But when is Nashville going to make the playoffs? I think they're going in a deep rebuild. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought they should have actually went like Porter Martone or James Haggins. You need to take highest upside, get some fans to buy those jerseys. You already have center issues with playmaking, and you already got Stamkos on that contract. Just go get James Haggins. But they didn't. They opted to go somewhere else. Also, Victor Eklund falling to the Islanders at 27, that was male practice. I thought the Blackhawks should have done everything they could to trade up for Victor Eklund after you got Anton Fondell. But that was something I thought too.
Yeah, that was something I was literally just about to bring up, as you mentioned, the Andrew Crystal, Connor Bedard type of stuff. I was like, the Blackhawks potentially could have traded up for Victor Eklund, who I know both of us absolutely loved when we talked last before the NHL draft. For him to fall all the way to number 16, I definitely could not believe that one. And I was really hoping the Blackhawks were going to go and make a push. I was thinking the Blackhawks maybe were going to go and select Malcolm Spence with the way that he was falling. Definitely two interesting decisions made there. As far as the Nathan Bem selection goes, third round picks for GMKD have been awesome, man. Nick Lardis, AJ Spellacy, Jack Pridham, who I really like in particular, John Mustard, and now Nathan Bem in the third round this year. I know he was like one of the leading scorers WHL early on last season, like got off to a torrid start and kind of, didn't keep up that same production the rest of the year, but definitely reasons to believe that he could have a monster year with the Kamloops Blazers and just be like yet another third round selection that we've seen from Kyle Davidson since he's taken over.